Hi everybody, welcome to another video. So first of all, I need to download the Raspberry Pi software. So that's what I'm going to search for on Google, Raspberry Pi software. And the top result is going to be the Raspberry Pi OS. So I'm going to select that. And from here, I can download what's called the Raspberry Pi Imager, which is like a piece of imaging software that lets you select your relevant Raspberry Pi and download the relevant image. So you've got various options there. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to go for the Windows option, and it's only a very small file, so it's downloading very quickly. You can see on the top right there, a matter of seconds, and we can then just open and run that imaging file. When it decides to load, a bit of a slow go on the PC today. So we're going to run that file that I've just downloaded to install it. And generally, like any piece of software, it's going to come up with a welcome message and you want to install. So click yes to install. No options really during the installation. We just click next and leave it going. It's only a small package, so it only takes a couple of seconds to install. And we've got the option there, do we want to run it now? Yes or no, you can tick there, and we can click finish. I don't want to run it straight away, so I'm clicking finish. And that's how you install the first part, which is the Raspberry Pi Imager software. Now I'm going to get my Raspberry Pi 32 gig memory card. I'm going to put it into a USB converter there, which allows you to obviously convert the card to a USB. I'll put a link in the video description below if you don't own one of those particular USB devices. They're very cheap, only a couple of pound each, so it's not going to break the bank getting hold of one of them. So you pop the USB into your PC with the card in the back there. As you can see, I've got the memory card shoved in the back, and I'm going to just pop it into the PC like that. You just plug it in straight away and in it goes, and it will now just detect like the same way it would if you plugged a normal USB stick into the PC. So now we've gone back to my PC. I'm going to now run the Raspberry Pi Imager, but first off I just want to check the PC and see what drives it's showing us. So here I can see all my various drives, and I've got two drives at the end there, G and H, which are new, which are related to that memory card that it's put in. One's not detected, which is the H. G is the actual drive itself, and my other drives, the other first four drives, are my own PC. So I'm going to run the Raspberry Pi Imager software now, and then straight away it's dead easy. Choose device. Now I've got a Raspberry Pi 5. I'm setting this on, so I'm going to go for the top option, which is Raspberry Pi 5, and you're going to choose the operating system. So I'm going to install the default one, which is the first option, 64-bit at the very top, and choose storage as the next option. It's going to come up there, which one do you want, and it's the 32 gig memory card that I want. So I'm going to click next on that. Would you apply OS customization? Now for this reason I'm going to say yes, I do want to customize it, because I'm not going to plug a monitor or keyboard into the Raspberry Pi. I'm just going to remote connect to it straight away. So first off, I'm just going to give it a name and call it RaspiNOAA, for example, there. And I'm going to give it a username and a password. I am going to change this later, so I'm just going to create something temporary to start with, but this is just so you can actually log on to the Raspberry Pi once it's actually got the image on there. So you can make anything up you want for the username, and you can make anything up for the password. So I'm just going to very quickly just make something up here, and then like I say, I'm going to change it later anyway, so that's not going to be an issue. You can configure the wireless card if you want to configure it, but I'm actually going to plug a cable directly into the back of mine. So I'm going to set the locale settings there and make sure they're set correctly to the UK. I do want to enable SSH because that's going to be one of the methods I'm actually going to connect to this Raspberry Pi using SSH. And the options there are just generic options. So there's nothing really I want to change on that particular tab. So I'm just confirming it's got all the settings and save them all. So now we've saved them, and would you like to apply the settings? Yes. So it's now going to say all existing data on the storage device is going to be wiped. Yes, and continue with that. And it's now going to go through the process of basically just wiping that card. It's blank anyway, it's got nothing on it, it's a new card, and it's going to copy the image to it. This can take a couple of minutes, so I've actually cut a few bits out of the video here where you're actually waiting for it to go along. It just takes a couple of minutes or so to install that, but I've just cut the video to make it a little bit quicker. There we go, we're back to 95%. We jumped from 4 to 95 there because I cut and edited the video. But there you go, you get the idea that it's going to take a couple of minutes or so. I think it took about probably nearly 10 minutes or so on my machine to do that. And it's just going through the verification process now and just verifying that everything is on there. I haven't had to click anything yet. It's just sitting there and doing all this on its own. So I don't need to make any changes or anything. And there we go. The verification process has now almost completed. There's just a few final steps there. We're on the very top end of 99%, and it says finished. And straight away it says, do you want to format it? Don't click anything there. Don't format it because it just that your PC is Windows based and it can't read the Raspberry Pi image. So don't think it hasn't worked and click format. Just bring this window back up in the background. It says you can now remove the SD card from the reader, and do you want to continue? So we just click continue. At this point, that's the image on the card, and that part is done. So now take that back out and put the memory card into the Raspberry Pi, into the back of the Raspberry Pi there. It just goes into the memory card slot, and we can plug the power in, which I've got there, and also the network cable, because I'm going to initially set it up with a cable. I've got no keyboard and mouse plugged in, so I'm kind of showing you how to do this another way. Like I said before, you can set the wireless up earlier if you want to, but I'm just setting it up as a test using the cable. So I've logged into my router. I obviously want to know what IP address the Raspberry Pi has got at the moment. At the very top, .6 is my current Raspberry Pi, which is sat in the loft running, and at the bottom is the newly plugged in one, which is .223, and that's the Raspberry Pi that I'm gonna be setting up at the moment. I gave it the name RaspiNOAA, and the top one, as I say, that's my existing one that's currently sat in the loft and running. That's going to be soon disconnected and replaced with this one. So just moving on now to the next part. I'm going to use some software here called Real VNC Viewer. If you don't have it, just install it, download it, it's free. I'm just going to make a new connection here. If you follow the steps what I'm doing, I'm just putting the IP address in. I just click new connection, and that's all we need to put in there, the IP address, and we've just created a new connection. So this is Real VNC Viewer. If you haven't got it already, just search on the web for it and download it. That's created a VNC session. This is like a screen share session, if you like, to the Raspberry Pi. I've just clicked that to see if it's actually going to connect or not, and it's just sitting there and it's not actually doing anything. It's not connecting straight away for me. So we'll just give that a few seconds and I'll just explain to you what I'm actually going to do next and why that's not sort of jumped in there straight away and started to connect. You'd think it would, but it's not for a reason. So there you go, it has timed out, it has not connected. So now I'm going to use another piece of software that I've got called Putty. Again, this is free, you can download it, just search for Putty, and I'll put a link in the video description for all the software. So we're going to put the IP address in there and just select SSH as the connection method and click OK. And now it's brought us a login box up. So here we can enter the details that we put during the initial setup, the username and password, if you can actually type the password correctly the first time. So there we go, we are now in. And if you type the following command, feel free to pause the video if you may want to make a note of that. That will bring you up with the configuration screen, and the option you need to select is the third one. And then what we need to do here is going to go to VNC and say, would you like to enable it? Yes. So we've enabled VNC. It says VNC server is enabled. OK. So we can now just tab along and come out of this software by selecting finish. So we've enabled this VNC software now, the graphical version. So if we click connect, it's asking us there, you know, giving us saying we found a key connection, do you want to work with that? Again, same username and password it's prompting you for, except for this time now we're in the graphical version. So we've got this far without having a keyboard or mouse plugged into the Raspberry Pi, which is brilliant if you haven't got a spare keyboard or mouse. I have got one, but I'm just kind of showing you how to do this. Right, so now if we go to the installation instructions, I'll put a link to these in the video description. So we're going to follow this step by step, and first off we're going to follow everything, do everything that we want to do. So we're going to copy each of these lines one by one from the installation instructions, and we're going to open the command shell, which is that one there, and just basically paste them to run them, and then click enter after each one has run. So that's to do with remembering the password, I believe. And then the next one is we're going to do a sudo reboot, which is actually just going to do exactly what it says, and it's going to reboot the Raspberry Pi because we've just made a change. We've just done the installation and everything, so we need to reboot the Raspberry Pi. A bit like a PC, you've now actually just got to wait a few minutes for the Raspberry Pi to boot, and then you can go back to your real VNC viewer and connect again to the Raspberry Pi. Same username and password we created before, we're back into the desktop display again. So we need to open the command prompt again and choose the next command, which is to do the sudo apt update command, which is going to run an update for us. And this first bit is quite quick, nothing massive to see there, a couple of seconds at the most, and then we're going to run the next command, the full upgrade command. Just enter that and click go on that, and then this is going to do a load of updates and installations in the background. This can take some time to run, so at some point during this I have cut the video and kind of left it and then come back to it again, because this can take some time. I believe this took around 10 to 15 minutes on my Raspberry Pi to actually run, and there is some default options that it actually brings you up and says, do you want to continue and things like that during the installation. There's one here on screen. Just select the default options, whatever it's telling you, yes or no. In this case, no for the default options, and that will just go through and finish doing this update. It, like I say, it can take a bit of time, so please bear with it while it's doing the relevant updates, and then it will come back to the prompt. There you go, and it's completed it. So we go back to the command, and it now wants us to do another reboot again. So we're going to back into the command prompt there and do the sudo reboot command, and that's now rebooting the Raspberry Pi. It's remembered the session, so it hasn't actually closed the WinVNC viewer. It's just lost connection to it, so hopefully it will come back up in a second and just reconnect itself. All these bits of software and all the links are in the video description below. I'll pop them all in there for you with some basic instructions. Like I say, you do just follow the instructions on the GitHub page, but obviously it doesn't tell you everything. It just tells you how to install the software and do this bit. So back to the GitHub page, and we need to install Git on there. So we go back, run the command again, and this is very quick again, a few seconds to just install that. And now we've got to clone the repository that we need. So again, just follow the commands, paste them in one by one. And the clone git command, that one there, which is going to clone the Raspberry Pi NOAA installation that we're going to do, the NOAA version 2. So that's sort of downloading the files and copying them over, everything that it needs for you to set your NOAA up on this Raspberry Pi. I have done this a couple of times myself because I've previously had a Raspberry Pi 3, so I had to follow all these steps a bit back when I did it, but I'm obviously moved up now to this Raspberry Pi 5. This is the 8GB version of the Raspberry Pi 5. So it will process the images a lot quicker. And there we go, it's just kind of running in the background. It can take a couple of minutes to actually run this, but if you follow all the instructions in the GitHub for the commands bit will sort of get you going, and then follow obviously certain parts of this video on how to set up the actual Raspberry Pi itself, because I don't believe it tells you any of that in the GitHub bit. It assumes you've already got the Pi set up and you're just kind of ready to set the NOAA part up. Right, so there we go, that's now completed. So now looking at the next step in the instructions, it's actually telling us to run a file called nano config/settings YML. Now I'm actually not going to do this. I'm going to show you a different way of doing it. The reason being, Nano is like a text editor for Linux, and it's very hard to navigate and hard to use if you're not familiar with Linux. So I'm going to show you an easier way to do this bit. So this is the line here where it says update your settings file to match your location, gain and other specific settings, nano config settings YML. So when you get to this bit, if you want to use nano, that's fine, but I'm going to show you what I think is an easier way of doing it. So let's go to the Raspberry Pi. So we've got the Raspberry Pi, click on the file view, file manager, and here it'll open a file manager that's very sort of similar to Windows type layout. We've got / there, which is the root, and then we've got home, and then your username that you created as your home directory. And what we're looking for is a directory there called RaspiNOAA version 2. So we go in and we look for that RaspiNOAA version 2. We click on that, similar view to Windows if you're familiar, and we've got a folder called config. So we double click config. Now in here we've got this settings YML file. Now this is the one that the text editor is telling you to use, but we're just going to use the equivalent to Notepad, if you like, in Raspberry Pi. So basically we just double click settings.yml, scroll to the top, and this is the generic settings file. Now in this file, first off, there is one thing that you need to change at the top in order to get this to work correctly. You've got a latitude and longitude setting there at the very top. You need to find out your latitude and longitude and enter the details there. I've just got mine kind of grayed out on the video, but you need to enter your details there. Now, there are websites that will tell you that. If you just put your address in, or your postcode, your zip code, whatever, I'll put a link to one of the websites on screen. I'll also put it in the video description, and that will basically give you your latitude and longitude that you can enter there. So that's the first bit of looking at this file, is entering the latitude and longitude there. So for the rest of the file, I'm just going to scroll down and have a look at some of the settings that we've got. There's nothing straight away that I'm going to change at this moment. I'm going to go over some of these settings, in particular gain and things like that, a little bit later on. But there's a lot in there. One bit here, I'm just scrolling down to here, a generic section here where you see ground station location, antenna information. Now here I've just got my amateur radio call sign in Staffordshire, England as the location, and antenna information says QFH radio RTL SDR version 3. Now that's how I've chosen to set my file. That's how I want to set it. So I've just put that information in just before I started recording this video, because I wanted to put the correct information in there. So that's the information I've put in. You can put whatever you want in there, and it'll appear on like a logo banner at the top of your images that once you've downloaded from the NOAA satellite. There's loads of different things in here for configuration. If we go right down to the very bottom here, there's things like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and things like that, where you can actually send the images to those social networks and it will display the images. That's something for another video. If you want to have a play around with that, feel free to. I haven't tried that yet myself, so I haven't even got that far. So that's basically editing the file. Now we can come out of here because we've finished with this file now. I've put the correct coordinates in there, and I've put the radio detail in there, and there's nothing else that I really need to change straight away at the moment. So if I do quit, yeah, I'll do quit. It might ask you to save your file. If it does, say yes to saving that file. And we're back here again, and that's how an easier way to edit this settings YML file. And what we need to do now is run this command, which you have to run if you ever change anything in the settings YML. At any point you need to run this command. It's install and upgrade command, straight after you make any changes to the settings file. It kind of reapplies everything if you want to put it in a basic term. So it's gonna take a couple of minutes to do this. And you can just leave it going, and there you go. That's done the install. We've just got to wait for it to come back so we can connect back to it again using the real VNC, username and password as normal to get into it. And there we go, we're in. That's the last step in the actual document. I'm not doing any migration or anything like that, so the rest of the document relates to like doing an upgrade and things like that, but I'm not doing that on this particular installation. I'm treating it as a fresh, complete installation. So just going into the Raspberry Pi configuration settings now, just to check everything. You've got your display interfaces. You can see there we've got SSH and VNC enabled. We've got serial console. I will disable that in the future, but I won't disable it at the moment. The only bits I need are SSH and VNC. What I'm actually going to do now while I'm in here now is basically switch the Bluetooth off first of all. Let's switch the Bluetooth off because I don't need a Bluetooth connection on this Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to turn off the Bluetooth because it's going to save power and things like that on the Raspberry Pi. What I want to do now is select the Wi-Fi country because I'm actually going to switch to Wi-Fi from my cable connection. So I'm just looking for Great Britain, UK. Select your own country here. Click OK, and it's hopefully going to let us connect to Wi-Fi now. It's going to bring us a list of Wi-Fi networks up, and it's going to ask you to enter your Wi-Fi encryption key or password, whatever you want to call it, to make a connection to the Wi-Fi. And as you can see in the top right hand corner, it's flashing the normal little Wi-Fi symbol like you get on Windows next to the clock in the top right. It says you are now connected to the wireless network. So what I can now do is unplug the network card, but make a note of that new IP address it's give you, 192.168.1.224, because that's a different IP address to what we're currently connected to, 223 on the cable. So obviously I've still got the cable plugged in at the moment, connected to that 223. And I've also got a connection on the Wi-Fi on .224 as well. Obviously it's going to be different on your setup because you'll end up with a different IP address to me. So ignore the IP addresses totally. And I'm basically going to change that now, come out and change that to the new IP address of the Wi-Fi connection, which is 224, and I can unplug my network cable now, and I'm now connecting over the Wi-Fi. I'm logging back into the Raspberry Pi again to make sure it's connected. If you type the password, terrible at writing passwords and remembering them, but there you go. We can see in the top right we've now got the Wi-Fi symbol next to the clock where it's a 1607, so we are connected on the Wi-Fi OK, and we're connected to the right address, and the Ethernet cable is now unplugged. I've got that unplugged and not connected. So everything's working good. I've just opened the web browser, so I should be able to connect to myself here just to view and make sure that the web server is running, which it is. You should be able to connect to this from another PC as well. So if we go back to my main PC now, 224. Excuse the delay on my PC, it's a bit slow running there, but yeah, it's loaded the web browser and it's showing us there when the next satellite pass is due on the main page. Those are when the next satellite passes start and end. So everything's working with the web browser, everything's working with the Raspberry Pi. It's sat on my desk here at the moment, it's all good. I can now actually wait a few moments and jump into the loft, and that's my existing Raspberry Pi 3. So I'm basically going to disconnect that and reconnect my Raspberry Pi 5. There we go, like magic. That's my new Raspberry Pi 5 connected, and the RTL SDR and the cable going to the QFH antenna, which is like a curly type antenna. Just showing you the picture there, the Raspberry Pi connecting, and that's my antenna. It's a weird shaped curly antenna. It's called a QFH, so look them up online. It's specially polarized for connecting to satellites. That's why it's the shape it is. There's different type of antennas you can use, but I use a QFH. Okay, so it's now a few days after the installation, and I've checked and I have actually got some images. So I've just gone to the website, gone to captures, and we've got, some good images and, some pretty bad images. I wouldn't say pretty bad images, but, average images. we'll say average. Got one there that hasn't captured at all, and I've got like another one here that looks like it's like a reasonably good capture there. So there's a couple of things that I actually just initially now just want to change, and I have covered this I think on some other videos, but I'm just going to kind of go over it again now. The first thing is I don't like the where it puts your little dot. Now I've put it very roughly in the Midlands in the UK because that's where I am. So yeah, I'm not too keen on that the little plus dot for your location. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. And also I'm one of the things that I did last time was I adjusted the gain, which is another setting that you can do. Now the gain is one of those settings you might have to play around with to figure out how best to set the gain on your particular system. So what I can see now is I've got various images. You know, it is working. I am getting the images. I'm obviously getting a little bit of interference top and bottom. Now some of these I'm not too bothered about the bits at the top and that, you know, the main bit, the picture bit in the middle is, you know, the clearer part sort of thing. But yeah, I want to get rid of that plus sign, and I want to play around, just play around with the gain setting really on the Pi. So what I'm going to do is connect to the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so there we are, we're now connected. Because now we're in the Pi, which is like a graphical interface, a bit like Windows really, we can actually browse to files and go into things and open them directly. So if we go to RaspiNOAA and config, we've got this file called settings.yml. If I double click that, we can open it, and it's a bit like Windows really. You know, we can open that file and edit that file and do things like that, whatever we want to do with this file really. So what we're actually looking for in here is a couple of different settings that we're going to change. One is get rid of that little plus thing, and the other one is to play with the gain. So the first bit on is actually the gain setting. Now you have to change this in various places. Now I believe the maximum gain you can set it to is 49. So I'm just going to actually play with this, and I'm going to set the gain for all the satellites here to 49, just to see what happens. You have got to do this in all the relevant satellites here. So we're going NOAA 18 gain 49. So we've got to go through all these here and just change them from 29 to 49, and we'll see if we end up with any better quality images in a day or so. Okay, so that's the gain setting changed, and now we're looking for the setting to do with, I think it's called crosshair. There we go. METEOR map, NOAA map, crosshair enable true. So we basically set that to false for NOAA, and crosshair enable, we can set that to false there. Now there's another setting you might want to change as well. If you don't want it to show the countries, what I mean by the countries is on some of the images, let's go back here for example, it will show Dublin, Amsterdam, London, Brussels, Luxembourg, and things like that. So if you don't want it to say those, we can actually quite easily change them as well. So where it says METEOR draw cities, we can set that to false also. I don't believe NOAA has that setting. I think it's just on the METEOR satellites that it does it. The draw map overlay setting, that's the bit that actually kind of draws the lines around the UK, if you can see what I mean, and the countries there. So this is the bit that draws the lines around it, which is kind of good to have in a way. So I'm gonna actually leave that one enabled. So we're going to leave that enabled. I don't think there's anything else we want to change. I will look in the future at setting the web server up and doing all the other bits and pieces, but for now I think that's just kind of just everything that I wanted to change on the images. So yeah, the only other thing I wanted to maybe change is something to do with the image at the top where it says RaspiNOAA and that, because I've kind of repeated my antenna details and radio there. It's just pulled it in, receiver, RTL, SDR. I just wanted to get rid of that line where it says receiver, RTL, SDR, because I've already typed it in there, antenna and then radio kind of on one line. So yeah, I can tidy that up as well. So just close that, save that, and if you then go into this folder here called that one there that no one can pronounce that begins AWN. Right, so yeah, what we're looking for is this J2 file here. So I'm just going to open it with a text editor, and it is this line here with receiver, where it says receiver. Now I've kind of already put it on the antenna line, you see. I put it antenna, my QFH, and then I've put another, like, you know, with a little, you can see what I've done there actually, you know, antenna, QFH, you know, radio, RTL, SDR. So it all fits kind of neatly on one line. I just don't want that other line where it's kind of like repeating the settings. So I'm going to get rid of that line, so I don't need that line at all. So we've got the ground station, antenna, satellite, maximum elevation and direction, which is what you get on the image. So we'll leave all that there. That's fine. Do I want it to say RaspiNOAA.local domain? Don't really want it to say that again, because that's pretty useless. If you're sharing images or whatever, you know, it's just more useless information on the image that I don't think we want. So let me have a look at that. Can we get rid of that anywhere? HTTPS bookworm. So it's there, but it's kind of squeezed on the end, isn't it? Bookworm 64-bit, and then it's right at the bottom. So 64-bit. So we need to then get rid of the bit about the web server here. So if I just get rid of that. So we just, yeah, so we've got the font there with the text in, font closed there as well. If you're familiar with the web servery stuff, you know what I'm saying. So we save that, come out of that, and that's done. Now, to actually apply these settings, what I'll do is I'll take you back to the instructions that we followed here, the installation instructions. Right at the very end, it says update your config file and then run /install and upgrade. So we just need to just run that command again on the Pi. Let's just back a directory and try that command again. Okay, so we've got some bit of live troubleshooting here. So let's go back and see. Right, so we need to be in the RaspiNOAA 2 directory. So I know what I'm doing here. So we do the pwd command. Let's jump back. So let's go into the correct directory first. Okay, so where are we at the moment? Present working directory is root, right? So we need to be in cd home, cd Duncan, and then we need to be in RaspiNOAA version 2. And now if we copy that script file, the name of that script file there, we can now run that to apply the settings. Bit of live troubleshooting for you there. If you're not familiar with Raspberry Pis or Linux or anything like that, then there you go. We've done a little bit of live troubleshooting. Some people kind of edit all this stuff out of the video, but I might as well show it you because, you know, these are things you're going to happen. You know, you're going to come to run a certain command to update or something like that, and it's not going to run, and hopefully these little bits like this will help you. So yeah, that's just running through now. Can take a couple of minutes to run through. There might be a couple of failures there. I'm not sure what that is, but we'll see if it all works afterwards. And we'll leave it and let it just update, and then that should be ready. Now, what you can do to be 100% sure, we can just do a reboot straight after this, which is probably the recommended thing to do anyway. Once you've changed any settings, just reboot it, because, you know, these things are left switched on for a very long time, and, you know, you never switch them off, do you? So yeah, we'll just do a reboot there and leave that going, and that's now rebooted. So we'll come back in a day or so and check to see if it has actually worked. So now that's rebooting at the moment. So if I try to connect to it straight away, it won't connect. We've got to give it like a couple of minutes at least. So if, like me, you're impatient and you want to know whether it's actually coming back online or not, we can just open a command prompt by doing start run and typing cmd on our local Windows PC, and we can type ping 192.168.1.224, and whenever that comes back online, it should start pinging again, and we should be able to connect to it, as long as it hasn't got a different address, in which case you'd have to sort of check with your router and things like that, because unless you reserve the address, sometimes it can, you know, pick up a different address on the network. But that's entirely another story. Just give it a couple of minutes, it's going to come back online. So as ever with any of these things, we've got to just pause the video for a few minutes and give it literally 5 minutes and then try again. because it seemed to take a while to come back up. There we go, we can ping it, and if we put that IP in the browser, 192.168.224, and there we go, it comes up now, and we should be able to see when the next pass is due. So we're looking at captures there. The next pass is due at 10:30 tonight. So yeah, we'll give it a try tomorrow and see how it looks. Hopefully adjusting the gain and that will make the image quality a little bit better, and we've tidied out the layout as well, give it a good tidy up. So we'll see how it looks tomorrow. So welcome back, and I haven't left it one day like I said in the previous clip. I've actually left it a few days this time, so I thought I'd leave it a couple of days to capture some images and things like that before we go back in and take another look. So we're back into the Raspberry Pi again here, and we can see any current passes that are coming up. We've got the next pass actually coming up in a couple of minutes actually from now, at 19:59 today, and it's actually just 19:54 at the moment. So yeah, that's coming up in a couple of minutes. So if we just go to captures, I have got a selection of captured images here. Now, one thing I've noticed from just the default settings is the METEOR satellite images are actually quite good quality in comparison to some of the NOAA images. So first off, I just want to open one of the recent METEOR images, and one thing you notice straight away is these lines at the top and distortion. Now this is actually caused by the satellite and is generally not a receiving problem from what I can actually find out online. Most people seem to get these random lines and bars and things on the image, but if we look at that image is quite clear, and it looks a lot tidier now we've got rid of the little dot and the country names. I think it does anyway. So that's an example image from METEOR, and we've got all these different other types of images of that same one. We can view thermal images, we can view all sorts of different things. You can just see the UK underneath there. We've got some that look like that, where it shows the cloud cover a bit better, and we've got ones that show the rainfall and things like that. Obviously when this image was taken, it's not very heavy rain over the UK, and we've got some other images. Put it in a lot of clearer view really. I'm quite impressed with some of these images, and of course the pass one as well, where you can actually see how close the actual satellite was when it come over your head. Obviously the center being sort of your location and the star being the closest point to it, so that came fairly close to you, well, to me anyway, on this particular pass. So let's just go back to some of these others. Now NOAA 15 I believe always has pretty poor images, not brilliant. I've never got brilliant ones from NOAA 15. A lot of distortion on the top and bottom. There is a way of removing that, and I'll probably put that on a separate video. But if we do zoom in, we can sort of see the cloud cover and things like that. And go back and let's have a look and see if we can find a NOAA. We've got some NOAA 15s there. They always tend to be, like I say, quite poor. We've got a NOAA 18 there. And we've got a NOAA 19, which I believe I used to get reasonably good images from. See again, this one, where it depends where it actually passes over, but you can see it clearly through the cloud cover, a bit of distortion on the image, and we should have an alignment view there. Again, that's pretty close, so I'm not too sure why I'm getting so much distortion on there, but it could be due to the gain. Now I've played around with the gain over the past couple of days. I did initially tweak the gain up to 49 there, and and you can see when the gain was on 49, it looked like the distortion was quite heavy at the bottom because the gain was too high. It's basically like kind of like a radio signal, if you like. If you turn the gain up too high, you're basically trying to pull a station in that's strong, already relatively strong, and it's causing distortion. It's a bit like having the volume up too loud on a traditional radio station. If you turn it up too loud, it'd be distorted and you can't hear what the words are saying, but it's a lot louder. And it's kind of the same principle when you're downloading these images. You've got to find the right, level, if you like, of the gain, so it's clear enough signal. It's not too low enough so you can't hear it, and it's not too high enough so it's distorted. So I have gone back to setting the gain to something around the middle 27.9 range, and I'm probably going to play with that gain setting over the next couple of weeks, and just to see if I can improve things. Like I say, my METEOR images are coming through okay, so I don't need to change the gain setting on them, but I will look at changing the gain on the NOAA images and just playing around with the gain setting really over the next couple of weeks to see the difference. Like I say, we've got some quite actually good images there from the METEOR satellites. I'm quite happy with those. So that's how it's actually working for me. And yeah, everything's good, everything's all working, so I'm happy with the setup. If you've got any questions or comments about the setup or configuration of the Raspberry Pi, I will try and help if you drop them in the comments. I don't know everything about these. I have had this running on a previous Raspberry Pi 3 and I've replaced it with this Raspberry Pi 5 and obviously set it all up again from scratch, so kind of jogging my memory as to where different settings are and things like that. So hopefully if you got this, playing around with it, it's quite easy to get started and get the images you want. My antenna is in my loft, and it's just sort of sitting there in the loft, so I'm getting reasonably good images. If it was outside higher up, I'd probably get better quality images, but considering where it is in my loft, I'm quite happy with the quality of images I'm getting at the moment, and I am going to tweak them over the next couple of weeks to see if I can get them any better. Okay, thanks for watching everybody. Hope you like this video. I know it's a bit long, an hour nearly, so thanks for watching.